Outside the tower, there exists a vast world. Rolling skies stretch endlessly, and countless stars illuminate the darkness. A place that is 1,000 times, no, 1,000,000,000 times wider and freer than the tower. Hey guys, Tower Climber here, and today I'm here to give you guys another Tower God Explained video, and in this one, we will be talking about the outside of the tower and the Talse Uzer storyline in general. So, I hope you guys enjoy it, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the tower resembles a world unto itself. Each floor is a massive continent-sized culture over which guardians and rankers rule over. The vast majority of inhabitants are born within the tower, and the vast majority will die there as well, never even knowing that another world outside of it exists. Yet according to Mazino, the tower is a tiny place compared to the world outside. Little is known about this outside world, and even almost all irregulars who enter the tower do not know how to escape from the tower to return to the outside world. In Of the Tower's Weapons, a book made by the great Ashulidwaru, the creator of the 13-month series Weapons, he states, "There's no Shinsu in their world, and something called air fills their world instead." He also writes that all the weapons used in the tower are modeled after weapons from the outside, which were brought in by Jihad and the great warriors when they first entered the tower. There also seems to be, in general, 13 months on the outside of the tower. This is due to Jihad making the 13-month series weapons named after the month from his hometown. All of the 12 months are the same as our world, but the extra 13th month is known as An December. Mazino describes the outside as a vast and open world, full of rolling skies and stars. Similarly, when speaking to Bomb immediately before entering the tower, Rachel said, "If you climb the tower, you'll be able to go outside. You can see a blue sky during the day and a starry sky during the night." The inside of the tower itself seems to be some type of book or fairy tale in the outside, since Rachel refers to Head-On as a fairy from her book. Mazino, who entered the tower tracking a being named Phantaminum, who we will talk about much more later, now seeks a way to leave the tower, either from him simply not wanting to be there anymore, or that he knows that Phantaminum may no longer be inside of the tower anymore, but he himself cannot leave it. Inspired by the many tales told by Mazino, the organization he created with his friend Bakery Yoon, known as Woke Hike Song, seemed to seek the same goal, although none of them have ever succeeded yet. According to the great father of the workshop, Mixeth, the workshop also exists outside the tower. It is unknown how Mixeth can know this, and many in the fandom think that he must have come from the outside of the tower as well to know this information. Also, the language of the outside seems to be different from the common tongue of the tower, since Mixeth was the one who made the pockets that acted as translators that turn all languages in the tower into Mixethian. According to Arlene Grace's pocket, she offered her child to an outside god. The outside god is a being located outside of the tower who revived Arlene Grace's dead child following its death at the hands of Jihad. From the tales that we know, long ago and shortly after the death of her lover V, Arlene wandered around the tower for a very long time, and one day she had finally found a way outside of the tower. But as she was leaving the tower, she couldn't forget the death of her beloved child, so she offered the body of her child to the god of the outside and wrote this in her diary. "Someday this god's power will enter this dead child's body and awaken him again. That child will open the door to this tower and return someday. He shall achieve vengeance for my love and finish the war which we started with his own hands. He shall destroy corrupt power and bring truth to the tower. God's messenger shall place the red thorn in that child's hands, and that child shall use the red thorn to cut the throat of the greedy king, and he shall find the hidden key, open the door, and lead everyone on the tower to greater heights." The outside god in general is one of the most mysterious beings in the whole series, and is responsible for the great change that is about to happen in the tower by reviving Arlene's child and giving him mysterious powers. It is unknown what the outside god actually did to the body of Arlene's child, but it is stated by Rachel, Bum is a person that is unknown to anyone except for her, and is actually actually a quote-unquote monster who will curse the tower and devour everything inside of it. According to Rachel, Arlene herself called Bomb a monster as well. Because the outside god is a being above Enryu, as Enryu works for him, he may be an Axis, as he is able to change the fate of the tower by resurrecting Arlene's child to accomplish Arlene's wish. Since Axis have a unique power that cannot be denied or negated, which we will touch on a little bit later. As evidence of this, Jihad and the 10 Great Family heads tried everything they could to erase all records of Arlene and Bomb, even structures and records concerning Arlene, and records and memories of artificial lives stored in the workshop were fabricated. But in the end, the tower's destiny has not been changed, as Jihad has even seen with his own eyes that can see fate itself. A final point about the outside god that I found out while researching this video is that there's a scene from season 1 that Bomb talks to Rachel about, a world of light and happiness where the fruits in the trees that the god gave them. There are festivals every day where the chosen people danced and played, a place without darkness. Speaking about darkness, the cave where Bomb was in seems to be in the outside of the tower as well, although from the way that Bomb and Rachel referred to it, it appears to be more akin to a prison for people who are unworthy, as seen in the flashback with Rachel being pulled back by her hair by what seems to be a large man. This also seems to be the case because Rachel wants to see the same view as Arlene, that being the stars and sky that many other irregulars say they have witnessed on the outside. All except Bomb and Rachel. Rachel seems to imply that Bomb was inside of that cave because of Arlene herself after he was brought back to life. The final thing about this cave is that we also see a very large Jihad symbol on the wall of the cave, maybe implying that Jihad's symbol originates from the outside of the tower and he took it for himself, or it's a symbol of his hometown. Now I will be talking about the Talse Uzer story universe in detail, and before I start I want to give you guys this quote. This world consists of many central stories, and it leaves unchangeable records. If we take the quote I just said as fact, then that means a story that has been written once in the Talse Uzer story universe cannot be changed. In other words, you can neither change the past nor return to the past. This means that the past events of the universe are limited, and this in turn limits the possible outcomes of the future. This means this is a universe that rejects the theory that states the world is composed of infinite possibilities, such as time travel, parallel universes, etc. TUS stands for Talse Uzer story. The events of Tower God are one of many central stories in this vast universe. In the Talse Uzer story, a Talse Uzer is a term that refers to Axes, beings that in other words are considered the highest versions of gods that we have ever heard about from S.I.U's work. You could say that Axes are at the center of the universe, as an Axis user, also known as an Axis for short, is a person with the power to influence a tale within the Talse Uzer story. They are basically reality editors of their own story they create. They seem to be capable of creating a space around themselves where they are considered basically invincible. These beings are the greatest variables which determine the future of this universe, and there seems to be many Axes on the outside world. Axes are normally called kings in S.I.U's works, but their powers are that of gods. As I said before, they gain absolute power within their own space or story. Because of this, people that are not Axes or a non-Axis cannot interpret the actions of an Axis in any way, shape, or form. S.I.U has said that the strongest non-Axis cannot even touch the weakest Axis. This goes to show you how absolute this rule of the universe really is. People are also not born as Axes. Normal people can become Axes through an awakening. However, it is said that one can die in this process. Currently, the only fully confirmed Axis in the Tower God story is Phantaminum, the #1 ranker of the tower. We know very little about him, but he seems to not be the Axis in charge of the story of Tower God itself, as it was stated that he is an Axis that is even capable of collapsing the entire world of Tower God. That statement making it seem like the story of TOG and his presence are kind of two separate things. Everything else we know about him is that even in the entire universe of TUS, he is an extremely powerful Axis that is included in the top 5 Axis of the entire world. The only thing that we know about his personality is that he is considered a scumbag by Yuri Jihad, and in his legendary rampage of Jihad's palace, in which he killed every single ranker but let Yuri and Jihad live. And this is maybe because he knew that these characters were important pieces of the story of Tower God and Bomb's overall journey. Now that we have a general idea of what an Axis is, now we will be talking about the Talse Uzer story more generally by looking at the other works that S.I.U has made and trying to connect them, or at least a good idea of them, and what is the overall connected story. 1,303 years after the Conqueror King awakened, the war that was his life finally comes to an end. Seeing how later there's a term called after Conqueror King's death, this Conqueror King clearly has an important role in the TUS storyline. First of all, the cause of the incident began in another galaxy far away from here. There are many individuals who hold power in this universe, and we call the people who hold the most power kings. A king named Conqueror King was born in the galaxy far away from here. This Conqueror King's Axis was very aggressive, and he tried to make the entire universe into his own. We were on our way to fight him. To introduce us shortly, we are a group of mercenaries that roam space, and we perform services for our clients in exchange for money. We were hired by the King of National Salvation to fight the Conqueror King. However, we ran into a problem on the way. An abnormal energy appeared on the Earth you were living on. If we left that alone, the solar system was in risk of flying into space along with nearby galaxies. So we had no choice but to make your Earth like that. The tale known as Give My Earth Back is about an Earth human girl who ends up on a spaceship with these colorful cast of people because they turned the planet Earth into a small marble for apparently necessary reasons. The original TUS occurs around 500 years after the Conqueror King's death, it seems, but it seems Give My Earth Back occurs during a time when the Conqueror King was actually still alive. So compared to TUS, Give My Earth Back is ancient history. It seems an accident was caused by an Axis awakening, but seeing the amount of damage, it doesn't seem he was a particularly powerful Axis user. Probably around rank F1 or less. If his ability is only about that much, is there much reason to come see me? There's a slight problem related to the offender and the victim. Seeing this dialogue, it seems Axis are already very common on most planets, and they have their own ranks, and their power seems to be determined by their awakening and the amount of damage it actually cost. Also, it should be noted that according to the scene, it seems that all Axis go on a rampage when they awaken, each according to his/her power. Seeing how the people coldly grade the Axis according to the scale of damage the rampaging Axis does, it seems these awakening rampages are common occurrences in the original TUS and have deep impacts on the world itself. Axis is not something you are born with, but rather something you awaken, so any common person has a chance of awakening. Because of this, from the youngest of little children in the neighborhood to the oldest of men on the verge of death, all people live on believing in that one-time miracle. This part shows that not only anyone can become an Axis, but it also seems to be seen as a miracle that could occur, and many people see this as maybe some type of religion on the outside. Axis, the power that is close to that of a god. We are still investigating. This part is important, so check it over please, until the day they bring the sparks of war back to this world again. This scene shows that even after the Conqueror King's death, Axis are said to carry the embers of war with them. Those who finally attain that power after all that waiting. Hey you guys, apologize first if you hurt someone. They wait for war. To us who have powers close to that of gods, you are nothing more than just someone. Axis apprentices Jin and Metiko. What we can gather from these scenes is that there are Axis awakening classes for normal people, and these classes seemingly do produce some Axis users, meaning that there are actual curriculums that can turn people into Axis, which is honestly pretty insane to think about. Why did God give Axis to us? Aren't you curious? Axis is the ability to rule your own space. We usually use that to fight, but did God give us that power so we can use it for such stupid purposes? Most Axis users receive this awesome power without even realizing why and fall into chaos and confusion. The result is obvious. They use axes for their own personal gains. A significant example is the Conqueror King. He used this power to fill his bottomless desire. We are now tired of such stupid acts. That's why we decided to ask God how we should use this power. You know, one day the Duke came to us and said, "I don't know how to make a god, so help me." So the series of events is true? You actually believe this guy? It's all part of a plan to create God, is what you're saying? Yes. It's all for his second coming. Now, using all the information we now know as a skeleton, I'll be making a prediction about the overall story of TUS. The story of TUS is a story that occurs after the Conqueror King awakens his power as an axis. Give Me My Earth Back is about the alliance that fights against the Conqueror King, and Talse Uzer's story is the primary story that occurs after the Conqueror King's death. There also seems to be another story by S.I.U known as Carnival. It seems that Carnival takes place in a time closer to the present compared to the events of TUS, which clearly occur in the future. Seeing how S.I.U was putting a lot of work into the plot of Carnival, the Conqueror King would have probably have something to do with the plot, seeing as he is a very important part of both of his other stories. By the way, there's also no hints whatsoever to tell us when the events of the story of Tower God take place in the overall timeline of the greater Talse Uzer storyline, and it is very possible that the original TUS will never be revealed to the media once again. So for now, it can be said that Tower of God has nothing to do with the main storyline of TUS besides Phantaminum being an axis, although I will be talking about how it could be overlapping in some way, shape, or form in a little bit. So the main plot that we can gather so far is first the Conqueror King's awakening. Seeing how the word king is placed after Axis abilities, it can be assumed that the Conqueror King has the ability to conquer as his axis power, that being the concept that he had full control over. This could be a good reason to expect that he is one of the most powerful axes in the whole TUS universe. The next thing on the timeline is after the Conqueror King's awakening, the Conqueror King uses his own axis to attempt to conquer the universe. However, other axes that opposed him, like the King of National Salvation and his allies, form an alliance and have a long battle with the Conqueror King. This should be the setting for Give My Earth Back. And the final thing that we know about this timeline is that after the Conqueror King's death, the world is relatively peaceful besides a few small-scale conflicts. And this part of the story is where the embers of war begin to reignite, and this is the setting for the original TUS story. Some additional Axis information that we learn from these other works that S.I.U has made is that S.I.U has told us that there are types of Axes such as Striker and Observer. Seeing so far that we have only seen these two types, let's say that these are the only two types for now. What I believe the definition of these two categories would mean is that a Striker would be an offensive type Axis like the Conqueror King. It also seems pretty fitting that Phantaminum would also fit into this class, since we have heard about him fighting during the invasion of Jahat's palace. And an Observer would be a support type Axis that oversees their story rather than use their powers for fighting. Oedipus, the king of artificial creations that we met during the original TUS, seemed to be this type of Axis, as they say that Axis who use their powers in stupid ways like fighting are waste. The final thing I want to talk about the outside of the tower is what the towers themselves may even be. Current time, 513 years after Conqueror King's death, the world is at peace. Earth, Rose Matter's third red petal, is also at peace. What you see right now on the screen is a scene from TUS Chapter 1, and on it you can see several things that resemble many towers. It's because I had a very bad dream. I couldn't get enough sleep. I don't know. An old friend? Is it the curse of a girlfriend who dumped you a long time ago? No way. You don't really think that, do you? The Towers of Attraction, also known as flower stalks. There are about 30 in the area, and these buildings carry many mysteries. There is no known information on why they were built, for whom they were built, or when they were built. However, this place is popular among students because the towers were managed by hiring students for part-time jobs. However, none of these students who work here know who lives in the towers. I can't believe I have to clean a place no one lives in every weekend. I'm happy they gave me a job, but I'm not really motivated by such pointless work. No one knows because the buildings have no windows or doors to show what's inside of them. I sometimes think that too, but whenever that happens, I think this tower is sort of a part of the Duke himself. Here is big and hard. Hey you, that's wrong. If you're going to be that dull and gloomy, are you free today? Because no one knows. These towers have become mysterious objects surrounded by a continuous growing list of speculations and nonsense. I'm not interested in a date. I'm pretty popular, so very few girls catch my eye. Shut up. This is a scene from TUS Chapter 2, and these towers seem to be the central things we saw back in Chapter 1. After putting all of this information on the table, I believe one of these 30 towers is the tower where the story of Tower God takes place in, and they are made by this being known as attraction, and that these towers may be some type of experiment to create the true God that was mentioned earlier. And something I want to talk about in this video is the access rankings. As S.I.U has said that Phantaminum was one of the top 5 axes in the world, then let's see if we can come up with some type of rankings for the axes using all of the knowledge that we now know. First place probably belongs to the quote-unquote God that the Duke and his allies in the original TUS story were trying to create. We have no idea if this God has fully ever been completed, but I have a guess that this God is the outside God from the Tower God story. Either that or this being is just a theory that is still trying to be created. Either way, if you say an axis is a power close to that of a God, according to my guess, the God they're trying to create would be an axis, but an axis so strong that it cannot be compared to any other axis. An axis that is not limited to any specified function or story, but is instead able to use all types of stories of all types of axis, literally making this being a true God. There could also be a very big possibility that with the theory of the towers being created as experiments to create the true God, then maybe at the end of the story, Bomb becomes this true God, becoming the strongest being in all of the Talse Uzer story. In second place, as the story presented to us, I believe the Conqueror King would be second in this list, being the main threat that wanted to conquer everything in the universe for himself and had many other characters that were also access teaming up to take him on. Third on this list in my opinion is Phantaminum. He is the one with the most concrete feats, and S.I.U has stated that he can destroy the entire God story, so his power as an axis must be above the strength of the axis of the Tower God story. He also seems to have an actual fighting style, so his powers don't only extend to his reality warping abilities. In fourth place is Attraction, being most likely the creator of the towers and most likely even everything that naturally exists inside of them, like Shinsu, the Guardians, and much more. Being able to create at least 30 towers that all may be 11 times larger than our own Earth is an insane feat, and in my opinion is enough to land him this high on this list. And finally, in fifth place is a tie for me, since I don't really know who is above who in this situation, as we don't really have that much concrete feats, and these two characters being Oedipus, the king of artificial creations, and the king of national salvation. Oedipus is the one that talks and introduces us to the idea of the true God, and has 2 other axes working for or at least with him, and was also able to take out another axis as well, implying that they may be a cut above most axes in terms of power. And the king of national salvation is able to ally himself with beings that could turn a planet into a marble. So yeah, I don't really know who is more impressive honestly, so this last spot is really up in the air, but from what we know it should be these 2 characters characters vying for this final spot on this list. And so yeah, that has been the whole video. I'm very hoping you guys like it. I had a lot of fun researching, and I now know a lot more about the Talse Uzer story myself, and it's super interesting to now know all this information that I did not know previously, and I really hope that I was able to educate all of you as well, and now you may have a better grasp of the overall story that S.I.U is trying to paint. So hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and remember, I'm always going to be here to give you guys the truth, and if the truth is not fully explained, I will always give you guys my opinion on the truth. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.